A patient came to us as a candidate for DBS, deep brain stimulation. He described that for his entire life, since he was a young man, he suffers from what he called depression. But when you take accurate history, medical history, you see that it's not really the depression phenomenology that we know. It is more like the negative symptoms of schizophrenia. Having no motivation and having difficulty functioning and having difficulty feeling, having emotions, as if his emotions are blank, and he also had some negative symptoms expressed in the signs, for example, a flat affect and so on. Taking his history, he said that he is also suffering from obsessive thoughts. But when you look deeper into his phenomenology, these thoughts seem to be like a false, unshakable belief more than intrusion that creates anxiety, and he needs to do some kind of ritual in order to reduce the anxiety. Instead, it looks like, and it was not typical for obsessive thoughts also. His thoughts are that his body is distorted, that he is disproportional in his body, and that everyone is looking at him and everyone can see that. Now, in some sense, he was aware to the fact that these thoughts are outside, ego-dystonic, and not part of him and not true also. So this kind of thoughts that he was describing didn't match the definition, straightforward definition of delusion, which is false, unshakable belief, because it was shakeable. He could say that it's not real, but on the other hand, he acted and he felt as if it was real. So it was like bordering the definition of delusion. Maybe overvalued ideas could be a definition for it, but it seemed that he has some kind of delusional element. Now, in his history, he said that when he was young, there was a period where he was really paranoid, in the sense that people were looking at him, and drivers on the street were after him, and this passed without any treatment. So he did not really get the diagnosis relevant maybe to schizophrenia spectrum, but it seems that his presentation of obsessive thoughts and depression border actually the possibility that he's having some kind of mild borderline level of schizophrenia symptoms at a milder level. Something atypical, of course. It's not straightforward towards any of these diagnoses. So what is interesting about that is first how to do the DBS and why and where to stimulate, and also how to translate this kind of phenomenology into neuroscientific brain-related phenomenology. So obviously it looks like the predictive error and correction that the brain is doing, a Bayesian brain. Now, the Bayesian brain predicts what's happening in the environment and adapts internal representation. If this process is disturbed, there is a prediction error. Prediction error will be false ideation. Now, if you don't know all these terminologies, Bayesian brain, predictive error, error correction, free energy, which is the entropic measurement of difference between what is actually happening and what is represented, then go to my website. There is a huge literature about it. You have to learn this literature by people like Carl Friston and others who developed this computational neuroscience approach that can explain many of the mental disorders. So in this case, there will be an explanation because the hierarchical internal representations and the schematics that are generated by the brain about the environment are in some way erroneous and explain the delusional element of the thoughts that he had. And these are, we know, related to central executive networks with hubs in the prefrontal cortex and the projections from the subcortical ventral tegmental area could influence the prefrontal cortex and this loop of brain organization, which can, if optimized, cancel out these disturbances of error prediction. So this whole language that I'm talking now, if you're not aware of it, go to my website, Neuroanalysis, or to Brain Profiler, and there you will have workshops and literature and books and papers that I have written and can help you begin and do what I'm just doing now, reformulating his disturbances in terms of brain-related the optimization or disturbance. And that would point to where we will need to do the DBS. DBS would probably target some kind of hub that has to do with widespread network organization, like the ventral tegmental area, the prefrontal cortex, which can act as hubs for wider spread executive central networks.